Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. While we wait for more folks to join us, why don't everyone share where they're calling in from? Dustin and I are in Boise, Idaho at the moment, and it's very smoky out here. I hope everyone is doing okay, staying safe.
Oh, nice to see y'all lighting up the chat. It's great to see people from CL's listing all these wonderful places.
Anyway, we have a full house tonight, so we ask that everyone stay muted so we don't have any background noise. Do you want to start?
Yeah, we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. I'm Dustin of Irie to Aurora.
And I'm Naomi of Irie to Aurora. I'm also the founder of Diversify Vanlife. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We are really excited. We have a fun agenda lined up. But before we jump in, we just want to take a moment to shout out our sponsor, LifeStraw. This event would not be possible without their support. LifeStraw has been such great supporters of the Diversify Van Life community. And if y'all don't already know, they just dropped a dope new bottle, the LifeStraw Ghost Steel, which is a big part of our outdoor arsenal, our van life arsenal right now. It's just perfect for van life. It's perfect for the outdoors. So y'all should check it out. Dustin is gonna drop the link in the chat.
Yeah, you can click the link and go get you one.
All right, so let's begin. We have a packed agenda for tonight, and for all the folks who sent me questions via email, I just want you to know that I received them. We're gonna do our best to answer them tonight, but we only have 90 minutes for this workshop. Our community manager, Anais, will be dropping your questions in the chat for all the experts out there in the audience tonight who can help answer those questions. I want to remind everyone that this event is being recorded and will be available to the community. So no need to take notes. Y'all just relax, take it all in, and have fun. Next, I want to introduce y'all to our resident van build experts who will be sharing their knowledge with us tonight. I'll start with Candace. Candace, where you at? All right, well, let's go to John and Jamie.
Hi, we're John and Jamie of Nomad Home with a G like a lawn gnome, GNOMADHOME.com.
Yeah, so we built our van. We have a 1996 Chevy Express high top conversion van, and we built it out back in 2016. And we lived full time in it for just about 3 years until we are now on kind of an off-grid home base in New Mexico. And we run a website that has all kinds of information about building a van and rigging up solar on your van. So yeah, we're here to share some knowledge with you guys.
Woo! And thanks for coming, and thanks LifeStraw, and thanks Diversify Van Life.
Thank you guys. Vaughn?
Hey everyone, Vaughn here from the Tiny Home Truck. Thank you to Naomi and Diversify Van Life, LifeStraw. This wouldn't be possible without you guys. I have a 2009 step van. It's a Workhorse W42. And I converted it roughly 2 years ago, and I've been living full time in it since. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing tips and tricks with everyone, and hopefully inspiring some of you to kind of take this leap.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, John and Jamie. We're waiting on Candace. She's going to join us here shortly, but just want to say thank you all so much for being here, for being a part of this. As we dive in, I'm going to throw up a poll so we can get a little info from everyone out there on where you all are in your van build process. And just so you know, all polls are completely anonymous. So feel free to answer and feel free to expand upon anything in the chat. And there's the first poll. So yeah, we'll give everyone some time to to get your answers in.
Where are you in the van build process? My build out is complete. Currently building out my rig, starting my build soon. I want to build out a rig, but I'm not sure where to start. That's me for sure. Still contemplating if I want to do a build or not. Awesome. Answers are coming in. So I have a question for the experts. I'm going to start with Vaughn. Dustin and I have been on the road for almost 5 years, but we live in a vanagon, right? Which is built out, you know, from the factory. But someday we do want to build out a rig and customize it to suit our needs. So I would like to know if you can briefly share one piece of advice you'd give to someone like us who is considering building out a rig but doesn't know where to start. And
Sure.
and before you start, like everyone in the audience, feel free to drop your advice in the chat as well.
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. I think for me, what I did was identify, I think first and foremost, you need to identify, you know, why you're doing this. And then secondly, what you need to operate in your daily life, right? Like I'm a musician, so I know I needed a closet for my instruments. I wanted to be able to have all of my friends in my van at once and not have to worry about, you know, part of it being cut off because of the bed being stationary, which is why I built the Murphy bed. So identifying those things that you need to operate efficiently, effectively, and with happiness, right? And love, I think that will open the door to what kind of vehicle you get, how much your budget is, whatever it is, but how much your budget is and how to execute. You know, after that step would be obviously to design it. I encourage everyone to just do your designs, your layouts. It can be chicken scratch. If you don't know how to do drafting, that's fine. As long as you have a mental picture of where you're going in that roadmap, it will be so much easier when you're actually doing the building. So that would be my one piece of advice, is just kind of like identify and clarify your goals and what you need in your conversion to operate.
Awesome. Duly noted. John and Jamie, any thoughts here?
Yeah, well, we actually, one of the main things we tell people is very similar to what Vaughn just said. You know, identify kind of 3 or so priorities that you have for your build and work around those. So for ours, we wanted to be able to be off grid for, you know, a while. And we also wanted a large bed because we have not only us, but 2 dogs in our van. And we also, you know, wanted plenty of storage space, also for instruments and, you know, and food and other types of things. So those were kind of the priorities we built our van around. So that's definitely.
And we recommend trying to keep it to 3 because it's very easy to make that list 10 things. And then you're like, okay, but out of these 10, which do I prioritize? So if you could keep it to 3, then you can really like hammer out, these are my priorities that I'm going to focus my build around.
And also another thing is, if you've never lived in a van before or traveled in a van, we definitely recommend before you really get solidified in your build to take it out on some test runs, like even just, you know, camping for a weekend or, you know, a short road trip or whatever. And, you know, try to like kind of test things out before you really lock it down, because there's just so much you're not going to know about how your build functions, and things are going to sound great in your mind. And then when you actually hit the road, you're going to be like, I need to change this, I need to change that. So, you know, we definitely recommend taking your van out for some test runs along the build process.
Definitely.
That's really good.
I would love to second that notion. I actually didn't finish my build all at once. I did pieces, and that very concept helped me with kind of figuring out, oh, I really don't need this, or this could be a little smaller, or, you know, I actually need something right here because, you know, I keep setting stuff here, whatever it is. But that tip is extremely important. So thank you for bringing that up. But absolutely, I'm 100% with that.
Awesome. I think Candace is here. Candace, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey everybody, I'm Candace. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I have a Ram ProMaster.
Awesome. We were just going through our first question, which is question. Briefly share one piece of advice with everyone who is considering building out their rig but doesn't know where to start.
Oh, I would say my biggest piece of advice is to do what is best for you and do what works for you. I know for me, it was very easy to get caught up on the viral Instagram, YouTube photos of what other people did for their build outs. And it got very overwhelming, especially knowing that I didn't have the money to build my van in the way that they did. So I just really had to stop what I was doing and center myself and remind myself to do what was best for me, because there are things that work perfectly for me that may not work perfectly for the next person. So get very serious, honest, and clear on what works specifically for you. That way you're not in comparison with anyone else, and that will alleviate all of the overwhelm emotions that you may go through.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
wanted to add one tiny thing, very simple, but also like establish a budget, because if you don't, it's very easy to just keep swiping a card or whatever the case may be. So like solidify, I'm not going to surpass this budget, and it'll be way easier to keep your costs where you want it to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, before we go further, I want to share the results of the first poll. So 51%, more than half of y'all are wanting to build out a rig, but not sure where to start. I feel that. And then 30% contemplating building out a rig. So a lot of y'all out there are interested or wanting to build out a rig. And that's what we're here for. It's wonderful.
Came to the right place. Okay.
So yeah, we're gonna move forward with another poll. So if I can find where I get there. Okay, so the next poll. What component of your build are you most nervous or concerned about taking on? And again, feel free to answer the poll, and you can share in the chat if you want to expand upon anything. And we're going to keep this up while we move on to the next question. So this question is on choosing your rig. Obviously, the first and likely the most expensive component of the van build process is the rig itself. So I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are judging by that last poll, what are some types of rigs that strike a balance between affordability and reliability, and where or how do you go about finding them? Let's start with John and Jamie on this one.
Affordability, where do you find them?
So, you wanna?
You go.
Us personally, we're like grungy cheap people. So we like, one thing to keep in mind in our personal opinion is that almost every mechanic knows how to work on an American vehicle. So almost every mechanic can work on a Chevy, a Ford, things like that. There are mechanics out there that will not touch a Sprinter. So you sort of have to weigh out what's more important for you. Like, do you go for the more expensive vehicle that may not break down, that you may have issues finding someone working on it, or do you go for the cheaper vehicle that's older, but almost anyone, even including yourself, may be able to work on it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a balance to strike there. And I think, you know, the answer to this question is different for everybody, especially with different priorities and budgets. But, you know, the older the vehicle you get, the more, you know, there's definitely like a higher likelihood that you may have mechanical issues that need to be addressed, or, you know, could have some, you know, breakdowns, major or minor, on the road. But, you know, if there are, you know, some types of vehicles, like especially like older, like Class B or conversion van type vans that, you know, people, you know, held on to those for 20 years and drove them, a few times a year for summer road trips, and then kept them maintained. So like, really like with finding a vehicle that's a good balance of price and reliability, you definitely want to look for something that has been maintained, because that's going to be more important than mileage. And yeah, it's maintained and in good condition. And yeah.
Yeah, and just for reference too, we got a 1996 Chevy Express with a high top conversion van for $1,500.
With about 100,000 miles on it.
Yeah, with about 100,000 miles. And we do recommend, if you can, to either take the vehicle to a mechanic if you don't know like what to keep an eye out for, or like in our situation, the vehicle we were looking at was 3+ hours away. So we actually spent the extra money we sent out a traveling mechanic, which we have done for vehicle purchases in general outside of van life. And it has saved us from dropping $10,000 or whatever on a vehicle that ended up being, not worth the money.
Yeah. And anytime you're buying any sort of a used vehicle, especially a van that might be, 10, 20 plus years old, it definitely is worth taking the extra time to take it to a mechanic or send out a mechanic to look at it. If you're not mechanically inclined, we did that, and our van got the go ahead, and we've had, relatively few problems with it. And we have a friend of ours who bought a van sight unseen halfway across the country, flew out and then to pick it up, and he's had nothing but problems, and it's out of commission. So it's definitely worth taking the extra time to, make sure whatever you're getting is mechanically sound. As far as where to get it, I mean, Craigslist is great. That's where we found ours. Facebook Marketplace as well.
Yeah, we actually recently looked on Facebook Marketplace just out of curiosity, and we found within like a 5-hour vicinity a whole lot of like older Chevy vans. And by older, I mean like, mid to early 2000s and earlier, for like $5,000 and cheaper.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
That's not bad.
I'll say for reference, we have a Volkswagen Vanagon, and while we absolutely love it, you have to really like mechanical work to have a Volkswagen, because it takes a lot of work. Though if you are interested in a Volkswagen, thesamba.com is where we found ours. It's the place to find Volkswagens.
Add that to the chat.
I'll add that to the chat. But yeah, let's talk more about y'all experts on the build out. Vaughn, do you have anything to share on choosing a rig?
Sure. I think Nomad Home, they touched on a lot of that, but kind of identifying again your goals of this build out and your budget, right? So that's included with that, your budget, your goals, and how you want to operate. I have friends who are 6'8", 6'9". I absolutely wanted to have a space where they could walk in here without trouble. So obviously I couldn't get a standard van, so to speak, which is what led me to getting a step van, which is essentially, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a delivery truck. I have my W42 is a little under 27 feet long in total, so I did not have to change class. I still have a Class C driver's license. So there was that easeability with that, but I actually have, a story. When I first wanted to do this, I was so excited, and I found a step van for $4,000, not far from where my mom lived in Maryland. Put a deposit down on it, didn't have a mechanic look at it. Turns out the brakes were rusted out. It actually did not stop. When I went to go pick it up and take it home, I test drove it, but I wasn't able to get enough speed to actually see if the brakes worked. And so it was kind of like a false positive. And I ended up losing $3,000 on that. And so with that, I wanted to make sure that the next vehicle I got had no issues at all, and I was willing to pay a little more money. So this van, the step van I found in Indiana. I drove out there. I had a mechanic look at it the same day. 3 hours later, he told me it was good. I put a deposit down on it. The truck that I have is $9,500. I haven't had any major issues with it at all. I haven't had to replace anything except for my catalytic converter, which is because of California smog. But other than that, it was fine. But having to fix things or having to put money into fix things every so often is inefficient for my lifestyle. And ultimately that cost me money. So in the long run, I paid more upfront to reduce my costs in the long run. Like, this is my home. This is where I'm at. I don't plan on getting an apartment or a home, a standard home anytime soon. So I needed to make sure like this was good and this would sustain me. So I think it just comes down to identifying exactly what you want. This is a bigger truck. So if you have driven moving trucks at all, you'll be fine. And it's a steel or aluminum fortress, if you will. But I love my space. I love the room that I have in here and the ability to do different things versus having like a Sprinter or having a standard van, if you will.
Awesome. Thank you. I think like the three things that we checked off when we were getting our van was within our budget, mechanically sound, no rust. If you know anything about Volkswagens, they tend to rust. So those were the three things that that we always tell people, if you want to buy a Westie, make sure those three things check out. So, but Vaughn, someone in the audience had a question.
Yeah.
I was hoping that maybe you can answer this. Do you have advice on building a van while you're living in it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a great question, because that's exactly what I did. I think all too often, illustrative of my excitement of getting my first one, I didn't have the due diligence to kind of vet that first vehicle. But I think all too often we get so excited and we just want to spend all the money. We just want to build it, get it done, and then start living in it. And I think it is important to budget monthly about what you want to build on your conversion. I understand there are circumstances in which you need a home right away, and that is separate from what I'm talking about. But if you can, separate your build out into months or different features of your builds, work on the bed area, work on the benches, work in the bathroom, work on the kitchen area, and complete it slowly. Take your time, because there's no need to rush if you don't have to. It'll also allow you to save money again and replenish your pockets to continue building, and you won't be so bootstrapped to kind of get this done. But yeah, I mean, have fun with it. Like, take your time, have fun, look for inspiration on Instagram and Pinterest, and just see what people are doing and kind of incorporate that into your unique identity and who you are and who you want your van to portray when people come in here and like, oh man, like I can see your personality in this. Like you want people to see you in your conversion.
I feel like that's one of the most exciting things for me, thinking about in the future building out a rig. It's like, wow, I'm going to put so much of myself. I've learned so much from everyone's, living on the road for almost 5 years, visiting everyone's rigs. So I've come up with a lot of ideas, and I know exactly how I'm going to incorporate my needs and also my personality into it. So that's a really good point there.
And even though we didn't build out our rig ourselves, we've done a lot of work to it. It's been a work in progress for the last 5 years while we were living in it. So I feel that so much. And it can be a challenge at times when you have to do work to it, but you also need to sleep in it that night. So it's definitely a balancing act. But I want to give Candace a chance to answer that as well. What is some advice you would have on choosing your rig? On where to park?
Yeah, so I actually went to a lot of different places, and I test drove. At first I was looking at RVs, and again, you really have to do what is best for you, and just think about what you're gonna feel like driving, what you're comfortable driving. At first, I was not even comfortable in my front seat, and I didn't know how I would be able to do it. But this was the most comfortable out of all of my other options. So I just made sure that I was adamant about going to different places and test driving, and really just putting myself in a position, would I be able to drive 5 hours in something like this? Will I feel safe? I travel with my German Shepherd as well. So will she be able to feel safe? Will she have room? So again, it always comes back to you doing what's best for you. But that's how I chose mine. It is also one of the high roofs, which gives me room to move around. My dog has room to move around. It's the shortest wheelbase, but I didn't need anything that was longer because it's just, my dog and I. And it's much easier for me to keep up with the cleaning of all of the dog hair that I have. So I just took into consideration what would work best for me. And out of all the ones that I tried out, this was the one that fit the best. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. We have a German Shepherd too, and the past 3 weeks we've been swimming in fur, so I hear you.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So this is the results from our poll. Seems like everyone is concerned or nervous about electrical, and we are definitely going to get to that tonight. So hold on to your seats. But before electrical, the question is pre-built versus DIY. So when we bought our rig, it was because we didn't have the time budget, which was a big deal for us, to build one ourselves. So the pro for us was being able to get on the road as soon as possible. But the con was that we inherited a lot of problems from the previous owner, and we weren't able to customize it to suit our specific needs, which has changed a lot over the years of being on the road. So since each of you have done your own DIY build, do you have any other pros and cons of DIY versus pre-built?
One of our biggest things is when you buy pre-built, there is, let's say when you do DIY, even if you don't know what you're doing, because we did not know what we were doing with electrical plumbing, we basically figured it out. But you are building the entire system. So if something breaks, isn't working, whatever, you're sitting there going, oh, I remember when I did this and this was like this or whatever, you know how to fix it. Whereas if you buy pre-built, you're inheriting someone else's potential problems. You don't know what's behind the walls. You don't know exactly how they wired every little thing. So in our opinion, that's a huge perk of DIY, is that it's a lot easier to fix or tweak or customize because you are doing everything yourself.
That being said, it does depend on your priorities as well. Like, obviously we're big advocates of DIY, but if you are just looking to get on the road and you don't want to spend, several months or however long building out your van, then, getting something that's pre-built or, even something like a conversion van or passenger van with a nice interior, and you just, throw like a bed in and some plastic crates or something is, a good option. And that's also, budget friendly. We do think you end up spending a little more money for like something built out than you would on just the base vehicle as well. But, if your priority is to get something that's more or less move-in ready, then that can definitely be an option.
Awesome. And John and Jamie are dropping some really awesome articles that they wrote in the chat, so you'll be sure to check it out. Thank you for that, John and Jamie. Vaughn?
Yeah, make sure you guys check out the links for Nomad Home. Super dope, super informative. Yeah, I mean, I think with a pre-build anything, because people would ask me, well, why not go with an RV that's already done? And I think, number one, it being expensive, like way beyond what I wanted to spend. But number two is like, I have full control over exactly what's in here. So in this build, there is no more and no less than exactly what I wanted. And it works around me as an individual, not just a templated system that will average out to meet whoever needs what. But I got exactly what I wanted. And I was willing to kind of do the same thing where everything I did in here was from my hands, and I know how to troubleshoot everything in here with my hands. I understand that not everyone will want to do that, and some people will want to hire builders, but the more you know about your build, the better off you are troubleshooting down the line. If something were to happen, you are empowered by having that knowledge to look at the electrical, or look at why the solar panels aren't charging properly. They might just need to be cleaned. But you might be looking in the electrical closet for something else. So I'm always going to side and be biased with the self-build or custom build that you are a part of, so to speak, if you don't build it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I couldn't agree more. If you're going to build it, even if you're not building it yourself, it's at least to have your hands on it and your mind on it and eyes on it is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Candace?
Yeah, so I was just sharing in the chat that I actually had my van built by a local carpenter. So initially in my home, I was having someone come to build shelves. And as he was building the shelves, I was like, hey, well, can you put in a window? And he was like, yeah, I can do a window. And my mom was like, why don't you ask him, can he do a van? And initially I was going to van build companies. And the first one I went to for just a basic layout told me $80,000. And that was quickly off the table. Then I went to another one and they told me 30. That was off the table. I went to another one and they told me 10. And, I could have done that, but then I met this guy and I showed him pictures of, what I saw as far as van life. And he was like, yeah, I can do it. And when I thought about it, they're carpenters. They're doing the same thing that they would do inside a house. They're just now doing it in a van. And I just, put my trust in him, and he built out my van in like 2.5 weeks. And initially he actually charged me $700. And I knew that just would not be up to par with what the work I knew he would have to do. So I ended up paying him more. But in total, with me paying him and my actual material, I didn't go past $2,800. So it didn't cost a lot to build out my van at all. I picked out everything. I was there as far as the measurements. I think the biggest part is me being able to choose exactly how I want it and being able to customize it to my own needs. Whereas when I went to go look at the RVs, everything is already stationed in place. And the most that I can do is, put things in it that would make it feel like home to me. Whereas here, I've created the home that I actually want. Everything down to the sizes of things, the dimensions of everything. So I do think it's very beneficial to have your own input in your build out, for sure.
I think people are asking for your carpenter's number in the chat.
Yes, DM me on Instagram and I will definitely give you his number. He's in Houston, Texas, and I've been giving his number out to many people. I have a friend who's actually building a barbershop in a bus, so he's working on that right now. Yeah, he's gonna drive around and he's going to cut the homeless hair for free, and he wants to do it out of the barbershop. So yeah, DM me and I will definitely give you guys his information.
Or check with your local carpenters.
Right, for sure.
That's great. And that's the thing.
Especially now, because they need the work. So many people need the work, as opposed to putting it into the huge companies. There are people who can do really, really great work that are honest and want to work, for the money. So, why not give them that opportunity?
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Entirely.
And that's the thing. If you look online or on Instagram for van life, you see these big $80,000 build outs, and it makes people think that that's the standard, that's what they've got to try and live up to. But you don't have to hit that big mark to live in a van or to live on the road. You can do it for much less. You can do it for whatever your budget is. And it's that narrative that we're trying to shift, because everyone should have access to this lifestyle. Everyone who wants it. It's not just for the wealthy and the privileged.
Yeah. On your budget, whatever that may be. I think we're going to move to, so thank you guys so much for all of that information. floor plan and floor plan design and layout. Vaughn, that's your expertise. What are some of your tips for DIYing your own layout?
Sure. I started with, I'm best with hand sketching. So just a simple notebook and a pencil or a pen, and just kind of, once you have your vehicle identified somewhat, maybe not the specific one, but you want to know kind of what dimensions you're working with. And you basically, draw your rectangle on your paper and just kind of play with stuff, play with layouts, look at other layouts that people have done. But this process, moving from the sketches to either you going into a program like Sketch or even Illustrator or Photoshop, if you like that, or getting someone to design it based on your sketches, having this down and having this as a roadmap to your final build will allow you to visualize it first. But secondly, you're not designing, measuring, cutting every step of the way because you already have your measurements in place. You already have everything done. And really all you're doing is getting those materials and cutting them to spec and then installing them all in one fell swoop. So it kind of saves time and it makes it an efficient process to just like execute. Again, I had that feeling. I'm guilty of having that feeling of like wanting to rush through this and wanting to get it done and seeing this in my mind, like where it's going to be and where it's like where it's going to be at the end. And I had to kind of just slow down, but having the designs just really helped. It helped with every part of the build. And of course you're going to have those things where you didn't think something through or something may have changed just because of tolerances or anything like that. And you can always modify, but at least you have the core foundational measurements and design and plan with you to kind of step off of.
Yeah, I dig that. I'm a fan of hand sketches myself. I always can visualize it better when I can draw it out. Vaughn, would you mind dropping your info in the chat, your Instagram, YouTube?
Yes. Yes.
And to remind everyone, if you have any questions, drop your question in the chat. We have some experts in the audience who I'm sure would be happy to help out. So feel free to ask questions in the chat.
Community effort.
And yeah, does anyone else, John or Jamie or Candace, do you have anything to add about layout and design?
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely want to second the hand sketching. We did that as well, with just some graph paper and a pencil. It's awesome. But then something else we did when we were trying to fine tune our layout, because it's, we found it really helpful to actually go into the van and visualize as much as possible. So we got some painter's tape and kind of laid out where we wanted to go and just kind of blocked out our layout on the floor. And we quickly identified some huge issues with how we were originally planning it. So we had to kind of rearrange some things. So that was really helpful. We've also seen some people do like mock-ups out of cardboard or something like that as well.
Like the actual measurements, cardboard box of their cabinetry or whatever.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say that my van is the shortest wheelbase, but I made sure that every corner had storage. So under my bed is a huge amount of storage. The seating space where like a friend could come, I have more storage there. There's storage in the upper cab. So I think it's really important to have, your hands on to your build because you can determine how much you want to bring, how much you want to store, and exactly what you want those measurements to be. So if at any point I wanted to take out the things from the back of my van, I'd be able to fit my bike if I wanted to carry my bike with me and, go mountain biking or whatever. But yeah, my storage is like one of the best parts of my van that I'm really proud of because I can bring anything, literally. I can fit anything in here.
Ooh, I'm jealous. I need some space. So that's one of the things that I really love about the Vanagon. There's no wasted space in there. I'm not trying to sell, but I'm just saying, unless you love a Vanagon, don't get one.
It's a good, the Vanagon, the community is a whole subset of van life. There's like special codes and everything. It's fun.
All right, we're
But,
getting to the big topic that you've all been waiting for, electrical. So you guys answered a poll. This is the biggest concern. And this is a common DIY area for most built. Dustin and I inherited a lot of electrical issues with our van. And after a lot of trial and error, we ended up getting a professional to just refine the whole setup. So for the experts, what are your recommendations for tackling DIY electrical in your build? And what are some budget options? And for the community, feel free to, answer in the chat your biggest pain points with electrical. But I want to drop this question to John and Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, electrical was the most intimidating part for our build. We knew basically nothing about doing electrical at the time. And we were able to kind of figure it out with the help of the internet and YouTube. So there are some good, resources online that have like wiring diagrams and things like that that you can follow along with, or YouTube or whatnot. There are some companies like Renogy, and a few others sell like kits that have like your solar panels and all the wiring and fuses you need and components to rig up like a basic solar system. And then from there, you kind of just need to wire in like your outlets and whatever else you're having around your van. So yeah, I mean, leaning on resources that are out there are a really good way to kind of get your bearings and get started. It's not as intimidating once you, kind of are able to wrap your mind around it, but it definitely seems intimidating off the bat. As far as budget, you can do electrical in kind of a gradual process if depending on what your budget is. So some people are able to get by initially with like a battery isolator, which hooks up to your vehicle battery, and then you can get like a house battery for the rear, and the vehicle isolator or the battery isolator charges your house battery while you're driving, and that can at least allow you to have some power to do things like charging computers, phones, running some lights when you're camping.
Yeah.
And then you can always add on solar later on if you need it. So that's one option. And then also, depending on your level of intimidation with electrical, you can always, get something like a Goal Zero or one of those like self-contained battery packs, which are also an option. Kind of the downside to those is that they're much more expensive than putting together a DIY system. Anything to add?
Nice, thank you guys. Yeah, we've gone back and forth with some solar setups and finally aligned on Renogy. They were a really great option for us.
Yeah, I will say we dropped 2 links in the chat to a very detailed, informative electrical sections of our website too.
Yeah. Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, it is very informative. I will say we also have a jackery, which we recently got, which is I feel like is a nice addition to our setup because it keeps us from taxing our battery, especially if we need to charge devices at night. I'm always nervous about using our house battery for charging at night.
We have a lot of trauma from electrical problems.
Yeah. Yeah,
Vaughn,
Candace or Vaughn?
or Candace?
I'll go. So for my electrical, I actually use a silent generator. It's called the Ego Nexus Power Station. And so basically, I don't know if you guys can see me, it got dark, but basically it is a generator that you charge. And so I spend a lot of time outdoors in national parks. So it's nothing for me to take about 6 hours to charge it, but it lasts about 2.5 to 3 weeks. So with my food, I typically juice and I blend a lot of my food. So I'm juicing in my van, I'm charging my drone, all of my electronics, my laptops, and that lasts me for almost a month, just on charging everything. And so I did not want to spend a lot of money on electrical. Even when it comes down to my lighting, I have the puck lights, so I can just reach up and cut them on, or I can use the remote control that they came with, and that cost me like $50. So my van is fully lit as far as lighting, and as far as my electrical, I just use my Ego Nexus. I have a microwave. I can use that if I needed to. I also have a propane station, but that doesn't need any electrical. But yeah, I tried to get electrical, and it started at like $3,000, and my Ego Nexus power station was about $1,200. But it just lasts so long, and I can charge anything, and it only takes me about 6 hours to recharge it once a month.
Nice. That sounds cool. I just dropped a link to that in the chat. That looks really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have something to add? See, you did.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably just gonna reflect everything that was said, but I didn't skimp on the electrical. It's one of the, I mean, it's the heartbeat of your conversion, so to speak. So quality wires. I originally started with AGM batteries, which were 200 amp hours each. I had 400 amp hours. And AGM is just like a lead acid battery, similar to what you have in your car. These are just bigger, they're deep cycle, and they're extremely heavy. They're, no lie, they're about 170 pounds each. And ultimately, I had the goal of switching those out for lithiums. Just to give you an idea, lithiums are 30 pounds. So I removed so much weight from my front right side of my truck just by removing those batteries. Lithiums are very costly. So just to give you an idea, I didn't get those until 3 months ago. So I've been living in my van, you know, for almost 2 years. And I just now got the lithiums because I really did want to save up to get those. I have 2 Battleborn lithium batteries, 100 amp hours each. But they last longer than lead acid. They have more cycles that you can use. Make sure you get a quality charge controller. You can either get a Renogy or Victron is another one. But you want quality electrical, and for whatever you need, whatever your purpose, get what works for you. So the Gold Zeros are great. They use lithium batteries as well, but again, they are expensive, but they're great to use. And yeah, just if you can, save the money for the electrical first, because you will have less issues and less headaches in the longer run, and you won't have to troubleshoot as much. Solar panels as well. Make sure you get quality. I prefer monocrystalline solar panels. They're a little more efficient than polycrystalline solar panels. But I have 3 100-watt monocrystalline solar panels on top. So I have 300 watts of power coming from there, and then 200 amp hours of batteries connected in parallel. So I still have a 12-volt system instead of a 24-volt system, and it just gives me more power. So yeah, I would just say, just do your research and diligence. Look at reviews. Read Nomad Home's website on their reviews on electrical components. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, and I have to agree with all of that. We've had so many electrical issues, and we also, lithium is our goal, and we have an AGM battery as well. It works, but it's still, like you were saying, you can save up for the electrical, put that in place, but you can always upgrade your components, your panels, your battery. You can upgrade your components as you go without having to tear into anything. And this question just came through in the chat. Should you complete all of your electrical work before you start the installation process? I'll let whoever wants to jump in and take that.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you good.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know you guys, I know Nomad Home said they like to do the electrical after installation. That's correct, right, guys?
Yeah, generally, but I think
Yeah.
it
It absolutely depends on I mean, if you don't have a lot of electrical, like Candace, she has the lights that you can just click on. You don't need wiring. So, I mean, that's null and void because your electrical is probably just going to go to maybe your water pump, or if you have a furnace or whatever, or your refrigerator, whatever it is, but the electrical is minimal. If you have, like I have connection points from the front of my truck to the back. I have a furnace in the back. I have my refrigerator up front. I have USBs all throughout. So I actually wish I had done the electrical first before my insulation, because it was a little more challenging on actually running the wires through the truck. I got it done, but it probably would have been a little easier if I had done that before insulation or kind of in tandem with insulation. But I think it depends on what you want to do, how much you need as far as electrical is concerned. And that, again, that comes from the planning phase.
Yeah, absolutely.
We agree. We kind of, it's a good idea to kind of know where you're going to run your wiring. And that can kind of help decide what order you do things as well. In our van, we basically have like our wire runs are just in like a couple spots. So like we could have done it either way. We kind of ran everything through like a pillar, like one of the framing pillars, and then just like a run back to front. So like, it really depends. Something else we did when we were running our lights, we actually ran the wires for those before we did the installation, but we like, kind of planned how to insulate around that. We definitely think like depending on the type of insulation you use, like if you're like gluing up like foam board or something like that, then it may not be good to run wires behind that, because if you need to identify an issue or there's a short or something, then you've got all kinds of things to dig through. So like, we think it's a good idea to have your wiring to be accessible, and you can kind of plan like, your order around that.
Nice. Honestly, like the electrical is the thing I'm most excited about tackling when we do decide to build out another rig. One quick follow-up for electrical. For any of y'all, do y'all have like an estimate on what would be a cost for a low-end minimalist electrical setup for someone just getting in who just needs the bare minimum to run, say, a fridge and charge a laptop?
Take your time.
Another.
I mean, I'll jump out there and say anywhere from, I'm trying to include everything. So solar panels, all the wiring, your inverter for your household appliances that aren't 12 volt DC. And then, let's say one battery, right? One lead acid battery, AGM deep cycle, which is going to run you $300 to $400, a decent one anyway. I would say you're probably looking at 800 to 1,000 on a minimal setup, something that's going to last. Well, I guess if you got one panel, maybe like 600, 700 for everything: inverter, battery, cables, charge controller, and one solar panel. I think that's reasonable. Unless you find it used, unless you find these things used, absolutely it would be less. But I think if you bought them brand new, maybe like $600-700.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, that's something that's very reasonable, I feel. And yeah, secondhand is always a good way to go.
Yeah, we tried our solar, a couple times and sold it on Craigslist. So they're out there. We've seen them. John, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, if all you're doing is looking to run some lights and charge like phones and computers, then you can even, just get like a deep cycle battery, and connect it to your alternator, which will charge when you're driving. And then from there you can, you can get 12 volt chargers for your phones. You can run 12 volt lighting or even like battery powered lighting. And most computers, you can actually get 12-volt DC chargers for those. So you don't even necessarily need an inverter. And that's like really bare bones, and that won't allow you to run things like a fridge or a vent fan and stuff like that. And you'll be locked into driving, periodically to charge your battery up. So that kind of depends on, if you're planning on hanging out in one spot for a while, if you're planning on road tripping or driving more frequently, what an option would be for you.
How much would that run?
And just like, an isolator and, a good battery, you're basically cutting out the solar. So I guess, I don't know, like $300-$400 for everything potentially. I mean, it depends on the size of the battery.
Yeah.
For sure. And the quality of the battery you get, but you can get like, a couple golf cart batteries for a couple $100 and throw an isolator on, and then you can upgrade later as needed as well. But if you have the budget, we definitely recommend springing for minimal solar, like Vaughn was recommending. But if that's like a huge barrier for you and you just need to charge your phones, then there are definitely like really bare bones options as well.
Nice. Yeah. So there are so many options out there, and we started with 100 watts of solar and upgraded. And someone just asked in the chat how much electrical you need for 2 people working full time. I'd say it definitely varies depending on what you're doing. For Naomi and I, we're both full-time digital nomads, so we're charging computers all day. We run a fridge, and charging devices. We have 200 amp hour AGM battery and 300 watts of solar, and that does us pretty well as long as we have sun most days.
Yeah, but we chase 75 and sunny, so
yeah.
It all depends. Jamie.
I think with that is someone asked about Wi-Fi as well, and having just having like a hotspot through. I have one through Verizon, and I have it on my phone as well. But it all like you said, it depends on how much work you guys are doing. I'm a software developer, so I mean connectivity for me is paramount. Being able to charge my computer day or night, and being able to have access to Wi-Fi and charge my phone, whatever it is. So my setup currently absolutely works for me, but I think it just depends on kind of like what you're doing and how intensive it is. If you're on Final Cut, you're editing videos, that requires a lot of processing from your computer, which demands more power from your computer, which is going to demand more power from your system. And so if you're doing that for 6-7 hours, because we know how long rendering can take, you're probably going to need a bit more power than the average user who just wants to browse the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Was there anything else? Go ahead. I think you're probably answering my question already. I was just going to ask if there was anything else on electrical you guys would like to share.
Well, I see some questions about cell phone boosters. So I just wanted to say super quick that we are big advocates for cell phone boosters. For anyone who's not familiar with them, they do not create service out of nothing. So if you don't have service, you're not going to get it boosted. But there have been times that John and I have had like 1 or 2 bars of service. We've turned on our cell phone booster and we've gotten essentially full bars. You can't always necessarily like stream Netflix, but we could always browse the web and get our work done and stuff like that.
Yeah, the boosters have been a game changer in our digital nomad life.
Yeah, John and Jamie originally sold us on a cell phone booster, and they did not lie. It extends your range. But all right, well, that's huge. Electrical. I think we could have a whole event on just electrical. But let's keep moving along. Insulation was another big one that you're interested in. Naomi and I recently re-insulated Irie, our van, and we pulled out all the 35-year-old fiberglass bat that had been stuck back there. And
nasty stuff.
Yeah. We went back with a recycled denim bat insulation, and we did that 6 months ago, and we've definitely noticed a difference. So I know that insulation is a crucial component. It can make or break your comfort in your van. So just want to ask if, let's start with Vaughn. Do you have tips for insulation? Any tips for the amount
Gotcha.
of insulation you need for a cold climate, for moisture, and budget options.
Absolutely. I have a few stories that I've experienced in this truck because, when I drove it back from Maryland in January of 2018, I didn't have the ceiling insulated, nor did I have the kitchen insulated. Those were both open. Everyone knows heat rises. So when I came back to LA, it actually dropped down to like 35, 38 degrees. And I was basically in a tin can freezing. I had my beanie on, my sweats, my sweatshirt. I was in my sleeping bag. I had a blanket on me. It was freezing in here. And it allowed me to appreciate the warmth now, but insulating the entire van was extremely important because I needed to be able to be in any kind of climate. And so like the denim, the recycled denim, I've heard great things about that. I've heard great things about Havelock wool. One of my buddies, he did his van with that. He swears by it. I just went with some polyiso foam board, about 1.5 inches thick. And I think the R value is like, don't quote me on this, it could be R13. Maybe a little more. I think it's 13 though. But combine that with soundproofing on the walls, with the plywood, and then with the paneling, the wood paneling on my walls. I would say I'm very comfortable in here. It does get a little cold sometimes, and I finally got a furnace this year, but for the most part, it was fine. And I would say again with this, don't skimp on the insulation. Don't skimp on making sure that you stay warm, making sure that you don't lose heat, and making sure that you can keep heat out when you need to. This van also can get very hot. I have 2 max fans that are reversible. So one is my intake, one is my outtake, and it kind of keeps the air flowing in here. It's cool, it's shaded. However, if I have those off, it will get pretty hot in here. I don't have an AC unit, and I don't intend to get one anytime soon. But insulation will go a long way if you don't shortchange yourself in the beginning.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, insulation's huge. Does anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, we echo a lot of what Vaughn said. We also did our van with polyiso. We only did 3/4 of an inch because we were trying to keep, be space efficient as well. But we wish we had done more, but it still makes a huge difference, especially in cold weather. And, you'd be surprised how much insulation can really, keep your van comfortable with just like your body heat and, and potentially like an active heater, like a Mr. Buddy or a little propane heater. As far as insulating for hot weather, we find that, ventilation and shade are the most important as far as that. So, if you're spending time, insulation is very important if you're spending time in cold weather. If you're spending time primarily in hot weather and you don't think you're going to be going to cold weather, then things like ventilation and shade are really going to be the biggest bang for your buck for keeping your van cool.
And your windows.
Yeah, and covering, if you have windows in your van, covering those up with reflective coverings, and which kind of goes along with the shade as well. And foam boards like polyiso and XPS insulation are all great. They're fairly cheap and they're effective, and they're not too difficult to install. But they're not the most environmentally friendly. So if that's something you're concerned about, then there are other options like Havelock wool. We're big advocates of, and a thin slate as well. But I think Havelock is a little more affordable and completely natural. And also helps regulate moisture in your van.
And for window coverings, we do recommend there's a, what is it called that we use on our windows?
Shine.
And yeah. Insul Shine. It's this really great material. It's we think it's really worth it. It's batting on one side and reflective material on the other, and then we just sewed fabric on the additional side, and we have it hanging up where we can reverse it. So in the winter time, we have the reflective side facing in to keep the van warmer. In the summertime, we face it out, and when we put those windows down, it makes such a significant difference in regards to heat in the van.
I have to agree with that. You recommended that for me last winter, and I stitched the insole shine on the curtains, and it's made a world of difference in the van. We even made some, the shape for the pop top that we stick on. Yeah, oh, it's amazing. So we can sleep on the top and not be freezing at night. That's a really good recommendation.
One more thing, can I add? I see a lot of people who are taking notes, and I love that. That makes me excited. There are videos out there that will show you people installing Reflectix. And the only thing I need to say about Reflectix is that in order for it to work properly, you must have a gap between the Reflectix and in order for insulation, not covering windows or anything like that. But if you need insulation and you want to use Reflectix, because it can be a great option, please make sure that you have a gap, at least like a 1-inch gap between the Reflectix and the surface. Otherwise, as soon as you put the Reflectix on whatever surface it is, butt up against it, it nulls it out. Like it's ineffective. It just becomes a layer of reflective material on your van. So please make sure if you do install it, just leave a gap. You can use wood beams, you can use foam beams across your ceiling or walls and then install the Reflectix, but it needs an air gap in order to work.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually was looking into putting Reflectix under our flooring, and that's when I started learning about how insulation works and realized that would do pretty much nothing because there would be no airspace.
We have a question for Vaughn. I'm curious if you ran into issues registering your step van as a motorhome.
Yes, this is a good question. I've actually answered this on Instagram quite a bit. I had to shop around a little bit. There was, initially I tried to go through, I believe, Allstate, and they would not cover me because I believe it had to do with just me being a converted RV. They didn't cover that at all. So I had to shop around, and I think Good Sam, I believe they supply insurance. They wouldn't cover me either for some reason or another with the type of vehicle I have. And I finally ended up going with Progressive. So it is registered under their RV insurance specifically. So registered as an RV and protected as a home and an RV as well as a vehicle. But that is what I've had since I registered the vehicle in California. And I haven't had any issues since. I don't know if someone overlooked something and I skated by, but I'm keeping my mouth shut until then. Otherwise, like, it works. And I don't pay that much per month. I think it's maybe like $170, $160 per month. So yeah, I went to Progressive though. They have an RV specific insurance.
Sorry, I was typing. Yeah, that's so RV insurance is something we've learned a lot about, is a really good way to insure your vehicle and your possessions. We started out with just regular auto insurance and added renter's insurance through Geico, I think.
It's fairly cheap.
You need an address. So you need to have a trusted address of, like, say, a relative that you can claim you live with. But yeah, renter's insurance we found to be an option. But I believe that RV insurance is probably the best bet for insuring your vehicle as a domicile.
Insulation.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything to add on insulation? Any of our experts?
Any questions? No.
So I want to move on to another one that I think John and Jamie mentioned is important for tying right into insulation, is ventilation. It's an area we didn't even consider with our van because, of course, it came built out. We have a skylight that opens up, but that was about it. But we know how important it is after 5 years on the road. So for our experts, what are your tips for installing ventilation in your build, and what are some budget options? And whoever wants to jump in and take this.
Popcorn.
I don't have a whole lot to say on the subject because that was actually one of the spots that I missed. And I would say that that is definitely, like Vaughn keeps saying, don't skimp out on it. Do not skimp out on the ventilation part. It's very necessary because there will be times as you go through different climates that you will need it. And there may be a situation where you don't want to have a window that is down, or you may not want to have your doors open. You may just want to have some air coming in. And I do have an electrical fan, but it would be nice if, you know, at nighttime when we're in the desert, that we could have that ventilation. So I would definitely recommend not skipping out on that part.
I just want to mention, I forgot to mention this earlier. I know a lot of you were expecting Brittany, but she had an emergency and she wasn't able to make it. Sorry, I didn't say that earlier. Back into ventilation. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, ventilation, like Candace said, that wasn't an area we really thought about, but I definitely see its importance now. So,
What are some budget options for ventilation? Do y'all have any?
I would say definitely, you know, the fans. You don't have to get a fantastic fan. You don't have to get a max fan. You can simply get, you know, they have standard roof vans that aren't the two that probably everyone has heard about. But you can also, you know, the idea with ventilation is creating a cross breeze, right? Like you want the flow of air to come in and leave out somewhere else. So it may be a thing of, maybe you have a side window on your Sprinter van, or you can open up the back doors and then open up the window in the front. And I mean, that will give you your cross breeze. You can even put a little, you know, USB fan up there anywhere really, and create a flow of air. It's really like what you can tolerate. But yeah, I mean, I think the best option is to have fans in the ceiling. If you don't want to do the AC thing, which is expensive both on energy and cost, you know, have two fans and that are reversible, at least one of them, and that way you can always circulate the air and have it flowing in there. And you know, it's easy, and they're not that expensive, so to speak. Like you can probably find one for less than $100, and I'm sure you could find one on Craigslist under the RV category for super easy, super cheap, and just put it into yours.
yeah, for sure. Like I said, we have a skylight that opens up just regular opens up to put a gap, and we just have a 12-volt fan. So it definitely makes a difference on a hot day.
Yeah, I mean, ventilation is extremely important for both for keeping cool in the heat, and also for removing condensation. So when you're, especially in cooler weather, you know, you could be dealing with condensation that'll help kind of suck some of that out and get some airflow going. We literally have our fan running 24 hours a day,
Always.
no matter where we are. Yeah, and the roof vent fans are definitely the best option, but you don't have to spend, you know, $200 or $300 on a fantastic or a max fan. Like they do have like budget options for, you know, $100, or even just like one of those roof opening things that they put in RVs, and then you can like put a cheap 12-volt fan up there or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say having a fan is really important for having a dog in the van, because we have Amara in the back seat and she has a fan on her as long as we're driving. She has a fan on her. She pretty much has a fan on her at all times. She's a German Shepherd, so she doesn't do well with hot weather. So try to keep her cool.
Okay. No, nothing with
Cool.
ventilation for me. I'm learning. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, if y'all are good with ventilation, let's move forward. We're rolling along. I'm digging this. the next topic we have on our list is refrigeration. And I know there are a lot of options for fridges out there. Obviously, the low end option being no fridge at all. Seen a lot of van lifers with coolers in the van, and that works too. But we have a Dometic dual zone, and man, having a freezer on the road is a luxury that we've come to love. I mean, ice for cocktails in the summer, that's my jam.
Mostly for Amara's dog bones, but what do y'all recommend for refrigeration? Someone asked earlier, and I think I will call out Jamie for this one. I think you recommended a top loading refrigerator, and someone asked why.
So that it's really like a lot of that's personal preference. So like some people just cannot stand top loaders and just, prefer a front opening fridge, which are definitely a little easier to like organize and access things. But top loaders definitely have some advantages in that, like, you can like really stack and cram things in there more than a front loader. But you do have to like take everything out to get to something at the bottom, which is kind of a pain. But another reason we recommend the chest style is because a lot of the models that we've looked at least tend to be more energy efficient. So you're kind of allowing less heat in from a top loader. So if that's an issue for you, if you're really trying to like skirt by on like solar, then like every bit of efficiency you can squeeze out is good. And we also just personally find it like really, I don't know, really useful with just the amount of stuff we can cram in there.
The freezer chest.
And for budget options related to that as well. So a lot of like the van or off-road specific fridges, can run you like $800-900 or more. But if you're looking for like a more budget option, you can actually get like a small chest freezer and rig it up with a thermostat to run as a fridge. So we have some friends who did that with their van, and it cost them like $200 with the fridge and like the thermostat and a couple wiring components, and they were able to have like a very effective fridge on the cheap.
Nice, that's great. Candace, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I actually was kind of overwhelmed. Sorry, that's Cleo. I was kind of overwhelmed with the freezer part. So I chose to just go with 2 coolers. And so my coolers, I stopped to get ice. Cleo, here.
Candace is looking out the window right now.
Yes, she is such a protector. Oh my goodness. So with my coolers, whenever I stop to get gas, I typically just go ahead and fill up with ice. And like I said before, you just do what's best for you. I am not an avid cooker, so I cook every once in a while, but typically I'm juicing and, eating fruits and things like that and juicing vegetables. So I have my coolers to keep my cold juice. And then on top of that, I'll have like mangoes and watermelon with me. So that's what I did for my cooler, and it works very well. I mean, every 3 days I'll fill up on ice, and that's typically when I may have to put gas in my car, in my van too. So it just worked out pretty easily that way.
Awesome.
Yeah, like that's definitely not a bad option, is to have a cooler, especially if you have a good insulating cooler, and you just have to be a little more intentional. Get your ice, make sure your food doesn't get floating in water.
Yeah, I think that's how we started out when we were first experimenting with life on the road. We had a cooler in the back seat and dry ice, and that worked for a while.
Car camping.
Yeah, now we've been able to upgrade. So yeah, whatever works.
Oh, Cool. Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add?
Any questions from anyone in the audience about refrigeration?
I will say, so like you guys, I have a Dometic dual zone. I love to cook, and I love, like, I mean, I'm always snacking, I feel like. So I needed a place to store my food, and I wanted to have a freezer option just in case. I'm vegan, so my food that I eat and just like options for vegans, sometimes they do come frozen, and so I need that ability. But you know, cooking is important because I can't eat out with the same options. So I did spend a little more on the Dometic, but you know, I don't regret it at all. I probably could have gotten a little smaller one, but again, like, I'm okay with that. The only thing I will say is that whatever refrigerator you guys decide to get in your conversion, just maybe do some simple calculations on how much energy it will use or what it demands. So that way you can kind of, you know, budget out the electrical expenditure on your batteries and either your solar panels or your battery isolator to figure out how much you need to drive to charge that battery. But I've had my batteries die from my refrigerator running, trying to keep the food cold before. You know, and there were some issues as well that I needed to fix with the electrical, made it more efficient. But refrigerators do demand quite a bit of power. So if you can do a low tech version, do it until you can't anymore, you know?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, we started with an older Engel fridge, and Engel makes good fridges, but we had a really old model and it pulled a lot of power, and we were very green. We had a 35 amp hour battery with a 50-watt panel, so we didn't have much power. So we had a problem with our battery dying often and couldn't keep our fridge going early on. So we're steadily making upgrades. We went with a bigger model Dometic when we made our upgrade, and we definitely are glad we did. We cook most every meal. Naomi's a hell of a cook, so we do a lot of eating in the van. So we keep our fridge stocked. So I definitely don't regret going with the bigger Dometic. But Vaughn, you mentioned like the energy efficiency. What are the more energy efficient fridges, and like how does that compare? Like, how much energy a fridge pulls? Is there like
I think, you know, every electrical device, at least in this country, has a power rating. So usually it's on the box, sometimes it's not, and that's very frustrating. I think there should be a standard, in addition to like weight. When we're ordering things off Amazon or anything else, like, I need weight to be on there, and I need power output, or required power to be on there as well. But you want to look at that power rating, and if it's not DC, and which is 12 volt, if you're plugging it up to, you know, your standard electrical outlet, which you'll need an inverter for, some kind of inverter device, you need to look at the power rating of that inverter to see how much it can handle. So if an inverter says 1,000 watts, if you have any devices that are more than 1,000 watts that demand power, you can't run it on that inverter. You need a larger inverter. So kind of, it all really just goes back to your initial setup and figuring out what kind of devices you can get. And so you can find refrigerators, I believe, in various power categories, if you will. I think Dometic makes, you know, the standard kind of like mini fridge. You can also buy, you know, a mini fridge. I think you still need a decent amount of power for that. But I think Dometic has a 12 volt mini fridge that they make that's pretty neat. I haven't looked at the power rating, but yeah, as far as any others that I can recommend, I don't have a list. I'm wondering if Nomad Home does, though.
Yeah, so one thing we found is that it's pretty difficult to find power consumption numbers on a lot of these fridges, because they'll list the wattage. Like every fridge you can find the wattage, but that's usually like the wattage when the compressor's running. Now, like a fridge, the compressor's not running all the time. So like, you know, how often and how long the compressor runs is what's going to dictate how much power your fridge draws. And many fridges, like almost all of the fridges on the market, run the Danfoss compressors, which are extremely efficient compressors, and they're great. But kind of where the fridges differ is the amount of insulation in the case, and also the like kind of the electronics that control like the running of the compressor. So that's where a lot of these differ, and that can be the difference between like a more expensive fridge like an ARB, which we have, and Dometic, both of which are great brands, are very efficient fridges, and like something cheaper like an Iceco or a Costway or something like that. So there's like a lot of these budget fridges that are kind of coming on the market now that are kind of iffy propositions, because of like lack of warranty, and while they can advertise a Danfoss compressor, we can't necessarily they don't advertise power consumption numbers. So like ARB and Dometic and a lot of the more expensive brands, they if you dig into their websites, you can find like documents and studies where they've like analyzed how much power draw the fridges take in different conditions. Of course, they all use different conditions, so it's tough to compare them. But it's a safer bet to go with one of the bigger brands, because they'll have a lot more information. They tend to have better warranties and support than some of the budget options that are out there. But yeah, ARB and Dometic for sure, and also Truck Fridge, which is owned by Indel-B. You might see a brand under there, is another good option that tends to run cheaper than ARB or Dometic.
Cool. Awesome, thanks. Yeah, there's one. We're right close to our time limit here, but there's one other topic that we really wanted to get to that never gets old in van life, and that's bathrooms. So while we have our last few minutes, I'm going to throw up a poll here for anyone building out or planning to build out their rig. Do you have or plan to install a bathroom in your rig? And just open it up to the experts, whoever wants to jump in. Let us know what y'all think about. What are your thoughts on bathrooms in your van or in your rig?
Well, the budget option is going to be public restrooms, and travel around with a shovel and practice leave no trace.
Yeah, we have no bathroom. We've had zero issues finding one when we've needed one. It is a good idea to have like a pee solution, like some kind of like a pee bottle or something. But bathrooms take up space, and depending on
water.
Yeah, and some other things. So we chose not to go with one, but if you need like some people need bathrooms or need access to something like that. So yeah,
that's just our recommendation for the budget option.
Right.
Yeah, budget option, poop shovel.
We don't have a bathroom. We actually have a solar shower on the outside of our van that we use rarely, but it just that emergency scenario, but it usually just doubles as extra water storage.
Yeah, I was going to say I have a budget option for both as well. My toilet is like one of those camping toilets from Academy, and you just kind of like take out the top and, sit on it. And then I just use composting bags, and then, find a safe place to dump it, a dumping station or a dumpster. But as opposed to always having to stop and find somewhere to go use the restroom, I always have that readily available. And there's always, a huge dumpster somewhere nearby. And then also as far as my shower, I have a power pressure shower. And then I also have the solar shower as well. So at any time I could just take a shower in my own space. I'm in national parks very often, so I have a lot of space and free time to myself, and it's not always feasible to go find like a gym to take a shower at.
Yeah, this is true. Rivers and lakes, cold dunks.
I would say initially I did not, my bathroom was actually the last thing that I got done my girlfriend put some fire into my feet, and you know, I ended up finishing it. But it was definitely the last thing because it wasn't a priority. And I would take showers at the gym. This is all pre-COVID, of course, but I would take showers at the gym. The hardest thing was like getting up in the morning and not having, you know, a place to go to the bathroom, especially in the cold, right? For some reason, when you're cold, like you have to go to the bathroom even more. But that was tough to deal with. And then, you know, obviously you get the pee bottles, that solution. I designed my truck to have a bathroom though, because I have the space in here. So roughly my bathroom is 5 feet by 26 inches. And the cost of the bathroom actually wasn't that much. I have a Lavio dry flush toilet. I didn't want to spend $1,000 on the Nature's Head, and I didn't want to have to worry about the maintenance of it. There's a little bit of maintenance that goes on with Nature's Head. Definitely more eco-friendly, but there is more to do with that. So I got the Lavio dry flush, and it was around $500 or $600, and I get cartridges every, I don't know, every month, if you will. I get a set of 3 cartridges, and that lasts me. And then I do have a shower in there that is, the pan is 2 feet by 32 inches. And I just have, you know, standard shower in there. I have a water pump underneath, and I installed a 21-gallon tank under my truck. And I don't fill that up that often. What I do with showers though, there's actually a video on my, I believe it's on my YouTube, but essentially I'll get my body wet, turn off the water. I'll wash, do everything I need to do, rinse off my body. And so the shower, running water ends up being maybe like 2 minutes, if that. And I'm not wasting anything as far as that's concerned. And the water actually has been warm because of the weather. However, I do have a water heater for when the time comes, and I will hook that up. But for now, I do have a shower and full bathroom in the truck.
Nice. That's awesome. We're definitely putting a bathroom in the next rig.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time, but we've got one last poll up there. Just let us know how you like the workshop. And just want to say a final thank you to our experts, Candace, Vaughn, John, and Jamie. Check them all out. Give them a follow. Check out all the devs. They share such wonderful information out there.
And this event it's recorded, so we'll be sharing it with everyone. So when the time comes, we'll let you know on diversify.vanlife when the link is live, so you can check it out. The chat will be available. Everything will be available to you, so not to worry.
Yeah. And one last time, just a shout out to our sponsor, LifeStraw, for making this event possible as a free event. So a big thanks to LifeStraw again for being such great supporters of the community.
And thank you all for showing up. I just love it. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.